The day the music stopped. A story of a wedding that didn't happen, a humiliation that did, and the woman who found herself on the other side. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Romans 8:28. She had been planning the wedding for 14 months. The venue deposit was paid in September of the previous year, a beautiful event space attached to Calvary Seventh-day Adventist Church in Nashville, Tennessee, with original hardwood floors and tall windows that let in the particular quality of afternoon light that looks like something out of a painting. The florist had been booked in October, the caterer in November. The dress, which had taken 4 fittings and 1 minor alteration at the shoulder, had been hanging in her mother's closet since February to keep it as a surprise. 214 people had been invited. 211 of them showed up. The groom showed up too. He walked down the aisle, took his place at the front, and waited for the music to change, the signal that Simone was about to appear at the back of the room. The music changed. The doors opened. Her father walked her in. And when she reached the front and took her groom's hands and looked at his face, she saw something that had not been in any of the 14 months of planning. He looked like someone who was about to run. Before we move forward with the story, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help us to grow this channel to uplift more people. Simone Nathaniel was 30 years old when she met Nathan Cole at a fundraising event for a children's literacy organization in Nashville. He was charming in the open, easy way of someone who had never had to work very hard at social settings, because social settings had always worked for him. He was 33, an account manager at a marketing firm, tall and composed, with a laugh that arrived early in conversations and made people feel like they had said something worth laughing at. He had asked for her number at the event. He had called the next day. Not texted, called. She had noted this. They dated for 8 months before he proposed, a rooftop dinner on a Friday evening in July, a ring that he had clearly researched, a speech that was longer than she expected and more personal than she expected, and that produced in her the complete, uncomplicated joy of a woman receiving what she had hoped to receive. She said yes before he had finished the question. The 14 months that followed were the months of building something together, the venue, the florist, the dress, and underneath all of it, the accumulating sense that she was building a life with someone who was building one alongside her. She was happy. She was genuinely, wholly happy. She had not yet learned to read the signs that were present before she was looking for them. It began, she would understand later, around the 8-month mark after the engagement. She would trace it back, in the weeks after the wedding that didn't happen, through her memory of the preceding months with the focused attention of someone reconstructing an event from its evidence, looking for the moment when the thing she had been certain of had become uncertain without her noticing. The phone was the first thing. Nathan had never been a secretive person about his phone. He left it on the counter, on the coffee table, face up in the way of someone who had nothing in it worth hiding. Then, gradually, he stopped leaving it face up. She noticed it once and thought nothing of it. She noticed it a second time and filed it away. By the 3rd and 4th time, she had an uncomfortable awareness that the filing away was accumulating into something she did not want to examine. She caught him once on the couch, scrolling with a smile on his face, the kind of smile that arrives when something catches you pleasantly off guard. When she came into the room and he noticed her, the phone went face down on the cushion and the smile was replaced by something more neutral. "What's funny?" He said nothing, just something from work. He said it easily. He had always been easy with language, which was part of what made him good at his job and what made this particular skill difficult to calibrate. The longer days at work arrived next. Then the work trips, 2 in a month where there had never been more than one, and when she looked at the itineraries, they were vague in a way that itineraries from his company had not previously been. She mentioned it once. He was patient and unhurried in his explanation, which was itself a kind of explanation of a different sort. The evenings with friends expanded, guy nights that ran later than they used to, that she received text messages about closer to midnight than she would have expected. She asked him directly, one evening in March, whether something was wrong. He said, "Nothing is wrong. I want to marry you." He was looking at her when he said it. She believed him. She believed him because she wanted to, which is the oldest reason people believe things that are not entirely true. His ex-girlfriend's name was Cassidy. They had dated for 2 years in their late 20s, a relationship that had ended without a single dramatic event, in the gradual, mutual way of 2 people who had simply arrived, at the same time, at the conclusion that they were not what the other needed. Nathan had moved on. He had meant it when he moved on. Then, 11 months into his engagement to Simone, Cassidy had sent him a message. It was brief and warm and positioned as the reaching out of someone who had been thinking about old times and wanted to say hello. He had responded in kind, briefly, warmly, in the spirit of 2 adults who could acknowledge a shared history without being defined by it. The brief warmth became longer messages. The longer messages became calls. The calls became the smile on the couch that Simone had walked in on, and the face-down phone, and the vagueness in the work trip itineraries, and the later evenings. Here is what Nathan did not know. Cassidy was in a committed relationship. Had been for 2 years. She had not mentioned this. She was not in a position to offer anything. She was not going to leave what she had. She enjoyed the attention from someone she had once loved, the uncomplicated thrill of being wanted, maintained at a distance that never required a decision. And she had not thought seriously about the woman on the other end of the equation, the one who was having fittings for her dress and arranging centerpieces, and believing that her fiancé's heart was exactly where it was supposed to be. Nathan, for his part, had reconstructed Cassidy in his memory into something she had never quite been, the way people reconstruct past relationships when the present one has produced the kind of anxiety that makes the past look simpler than it was. He had convinced himself that something unfinished was still open. It was not open. He had simply found a comfortable place to stand while he was unable to decide which direction to move. He stood there for 3 months. Then he stood at the front of a beautiful room with original hardwood floors and tall windows and took Simone's hands and looked at her face and understood in the full visibility of 211 witnesses that he had arrived at the decision too late. She saw it in his face before he said anything. It was not guilt. It was not grief. It was a quality of distance, the expression of someone who has already left a room they are still standing in. She said, quietly enough that only he could hear. He said, "I can't." 2 words. The room, which had been producing the warm, ambient murmur of 211 people in the pleasant state of witnessing something they expected to be joyful, went quiet. Her father, who was still at her side, went very still. The pastor, Pastor Victor Ellison, who had been at Calvary for 8 years and who had officiated many weddings but had never been in a room where one had stalked before it began, stood at the front of the venue with an expression of such thorough composure that it was itself a form of pastoral care. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't do this." He stepped back. He walked up the aisle. The room watched him. 211 people watched a man walk out of his own wedding. Simone stood at the front of the room for a moment that was not long in clock time and was very long in human time. Then she did something that the people who were there would describe in the weeks and months that followed as one of the most dignified things they had ever witnessed. She turned to Pastor Ellison. She said, "Can we pray?" He stepped forward. He prayed, briefly, honestly, asking for peace and for the presence of a God who was not surprised by what had just happened, even when everyone in the room was. Then Simone turned to the room. She said, "Please eat. The food is paid for." Cassidy's relationship emerged the following week. Not through Nathan's disclosure, he had not known about it either, which was the particular cruelty of his situation. It emerged through a mutual acquaintance who happened to know both Cassidy and someone in Simone's circle, and who, in the aftermath of what had happened at the wedding, offered the information that perhaps explained something. Simone's best friend, Jasmine, delivered the news on a Tuesday evening with the measured, deliberate care of someone who understands that what they are about to say is going to produce a reaction and has decided that the information is owed regardless. She told Simone about Cassidy's relationship. Simone was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "So he threw away what we had for someone who was never going to give him anything." "Yes, and now he has nothing." "Yes." There was another pause. Then Simone said something that surprised Jasmine, not because Jasmine did not know her, but because the timing of it was unexpected. She said, "I almost feel sorry for him." Jasmine looked at her. Almost. She gave herself permission to feel all of it. The grief was real, and she did not minimize it. She had loved Nathan genuinely, and the love had produced a vision of a future that no longer existed, and the loss of that future was a loss, regardless of how it had come about. The anger was also real. There was the private anger, at the months of half-truths, the face-down phone, the smile that had not been for her, at the version of herself who had noticed the signs and chosen the explanations Nathan had offered, rather than the ones that were accurate. And there was the financial anger, which was its own category and deserved its own chapter. 14 months of deposits and bookings and fittings and arrangements, the venue, the caterer, the florist, the dress that had been hanging in her mother's closet since February, numbers that had seemed reasonable in the context of building a life together, and that looked very different in the context of an empty room with full plates that nobody particularly wanted to eat. Her mother, Linda, was quiet about the anger in the way of women who contain enormous amounts of it in silence, because the expression of it would require more energy than they currently have available. Her father, James, was not quiet. He was careful about where the not quietness went, but Simone was aware of it. Her friends did what good friends do. They showed up in the practical, unglamorous ways that friendship requires in crisis. The meals delivered, the evenings occupied, the texts that said nothing except "I'm here," but said it consistently enough that the consistency itself was a form of support. Pastor Ellison called on the Monday after the wedding. He said, "How are you?" She said, "I've been better. I've also been worse." He said, "That's an honest answer. Can I come by?" She said, "Yes." He came on a Tuesday. He sat at her kitchen table with the unhurried quality of a man who had nowhere else to be, which was not quite true and was nonetheless how he chose to present himself, because presence requires the appearance of availability, even when availability is constructed. He said, "Tell me where you are." She told him, The grief, the anger, the cost, the months of signs she had explained away, the 2 words at the front of a room full of people. He listened with the full, quiet attention she had needed. When she finished, he said, "I want to read something." He opened his Bible to Romans 8:28. "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." He said, "I'm not going to tell you this means what happened was good. It was not good. What Nathan did was not good, and the pain you are carrying is real." He paused. "But I want you to hold the word all, not some things, not the things that make obvious sense. All things, including this one, including the 14 months and the deposits and the dress and the Tuesday that didn't become your wedding day." He looked at her. God is not surprised by what happened. He was in that room. He heard the prayer. He is in this kitchen right now, and he is working, not around this, not despite this, but through it, in the direction of something good. She said, "I can't see it yet." He said, "You don't have to see it yet. You just have to not close the door on the possibility." She thought about that for a long time. He called 6 weeks after the wedding. She did not answer. He called again. She did not answer. On the 3rd call, she answered. "Simone, I need to talk to you." She said, "I'm listening." He told her about Cassidy, the messages, the calls, the reconstruction of something that had not existed in the form he had reconstructed it. He told her about finding out that Cassidy had a relationship, which had arrived in his direction not through any graceful disclosure, but through the same mutual acquaintance network that had told Simone first. He told her he was sorry. He told her he was sorry in the full, itemized way of someone who has had 6 weeks to understand what they did and has arrived at the accounting honestly. The months of half-truths, the face-down phone, the explanation of the smile, the decision made 2 months before the wedding that he had not communicated in time and had communicated in the worst possible way in the worst possible setting. He said, "I don't know if there's any way to..." She said, "I'm gonna stop you there." He was quiet. She said, "I want to tell you something and I need you to hear it completely." He said, "Okay." She said, "I forgive you." He was quiet. "I mean that. I've been working on it for 6 weeks and I mean it. What you did to me was wrong and humiliating and expensive, and it cost me something I can't fully calculate yet. And I forgive you, not because what you did was acceptable, because I'm not going to carry the weight of it for the rest of my life, and forgiveness is how I put it down." He said, "Simone." She said, "I'm not finished." He was quiet again. She said, "I forgive you, and I am not getting back together with you. Those 2 things are both true at the same time. I am not interested in rebuilding something with a person who was secretly talking to someone else for 3 months, and who made the decision to leave me in front of 211 people instead of in a private conversation like an honest person would have done." She paused. "You don't get to humiliate someone like that and then ask them to come back. That's not how forgiveness works. Forgiveness is for me. The relationship is over." The line was quiet. He said, "I understand." She said, "Good." She said goodbye. She ended the call. She sat at her kitchen table for a moment. Then she opened her Bible to Romans 8:28 and read it again. "In all things, God works for the good." She didn't know yet what the good was going to look like. She was beginning to believe it existed. 3 months after the call with Nathan, Simone did something she had not done in the 14 months of planning a wedding. She signed up to volunteer at the Children's Literacy Organization where she and Nathan had met. Not to find someone, not with any agenda attached to the decision, She signed up because in the weeks since the call, she had been thinking about what she wanted her life to look like going forward. Not the wedding-shaped version, not the future she had been building toward with someone else, but the version that was entirely hers. And the Children's Literacy Organization had always been something she cared about, independent of the event where she had met Nathan. And caring about things independent of who you met at them turned out to be the foundation of a life, rather than the backdrop.
She went on a Saturday morning. She read to children for 2 hours with the patient, warm attentiveness of a pediatric occupational therapist who had spent her career understanding how children receive information and what makes them feel safe receiving it. Afterward, in the parking lot, a woman she had not met before, one of the other volunteers, a woman named Keziah, who had a composed, direct manner and a laugh that arrived easily, said, "You're incredible with them. How long have you been volunteering here?" "First day back in a while." "First day back?" "Long story. I'm a good listener." They went to a coffee shop around the corner. They talked for 2 hours. At the end of the conversation, Keziah said, "You know what I hear when you tell me that story?" "What?" Keziah said, "I hear a woman who handled something awful with more grace than most people have available on their best days, and who then forgave the person who did it, not because she's a pushover, but because she understands that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself." She paused. "That's a remarkable thing." "I had some help." "What kind of help?" She told her about Romans 8:28 and Pastor Ellison's kitchen table visit and the word all and the door she had decided to leave open rather than close. Keziah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I've been meaning to find a church." Simone said, "Come with me Saturday." She came on Saturday. She came back the following Saturday. The Saturday after that, she stayed for the fellowship meal and sat at a table with Simone and 3 other women who formed, over the following months, the kind of community that Simone had not known she was going to need, and that turned out to be exactly what she needed. She did not find a new relationship that year. She found something she had not been looking for. A version of herself that was not defined by the 14 months or the room with the hardwood floors or the 2 words spoken at the front of it. A version that was entirely hers. And it turned out to be more than enough. Romans 8:28 is one of the most frequently quoted verses in times of difficulty and one of the most frequently misunderstood. It does not say God caused the difficulty. It does not say the difficulty was good. It says that God works, actively, presently, in the ongoing tense, for the good of those who love him, in all things, not around the hard things, through them. What Nathan Cole did was wrong. The months of half-truths were wrong. The discovery of Cassidy's relationship was its own separate consequence that belonged to Nathan's choices and not to Simone's fault. The story is honest about all of this. But the story is also honest about what Simone chose to do with what was done to her. She chose to forgive. Not because forgiveness meant the relationship could resume, not because Nathan had earned it, because she understood, through a conversation at a kitchen table with a Bible open to Romans 8:28, that forgiveness is not a gift you extend to the person who wronged you. It is a gift you extend to yourself. It is the act of putting down the weight of someone else's wrong and refusing to carry it into the future you are building. Simone built a future, not the one she had been planning, a better one in the ways that matter most, one that was rooted in who she actually was, rather than in the shape of a wedding she had been designing for someone else's benefit, alongside her own. The Children's Literacy Organization, the Saturday mornings, Keziah, the table with the 3 women, the version of herself that was entirely hers.
In all things, God works for the good. Even the Tuesday that didn't become her wedding day. Even the 2 words at the front of the room. Even the deposits that were not refunded, and the dress that needed to be dealt with, and the 211 people who witnessed something they had not been invited to witness. Even those things. God was in the room.
He was working.
And the good, though Simone could not see it at the front of that beautiful room with the hardwood floors and the afternoon light,
Was already on its way.
And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose.
If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified about more inspirational stories on redemption and hope.